Obviously, there are economic impacts of something like this happening as well. From a net importer, India has obviously taken a number of strides when it comes to exporting defense equipment as well. But according to you, how is this particular nuanced approach, with countries like France and in the past with Russia, is helping our cause of growth and Atmanirbharta?
Well, as the wing commander just mentioned, it doesn't really help, but it is contextual. What are the options that India has? We just retired two squadrons of MiG-21, I think Squadron 23 and Squadron 3. So we are down with two more squadrons, which adds to the problems that the Major General mentioned a little while ago. So here is a case where we desperately need far more squadrons than the 42 that are sanctioned. We are less than 30 right now. We should be at 60 ideally, if not more. We've got adversaries which are very powerful adversaries, which includes our neighbor in the north, our neighbor in the east, and our neighbor in the west. We also have an adversary or a friendly adversary in North America, and we need to make sure that we got enough deterrence for any misadventure from that side also. So it's a very complex, evolving situation, and each of the platforms that we talk about, such as a fighter jet or Rafale in this particular case, this is a very, very complex platform. So if we are trying to create an AMCA, it is scheduled to be inducted by 2035, and even when it gets inducted, it'll take at least a couple of more years, if not half a decade, to stabilize, because that's the nature of the beast. Rafale also took a lot of time to stabilize. Now, one of the advantages of a platform such as Rafale is that it has got high service availability, at least 80%, which is what its predecessor, the Mirage 2000, had. And it is a claim 90% is what they are saying is the service availability of Rafale. Versus if you look at a Sukhoi, which is less than 50% service availability, which means that you need to buy two Sukhois to really have one Sukhoi available. Now you look at the other options. Let's assume that we can go ahead and buy an F-35. Same problem. Its service availability is less than 50%. And therefore, you need to buy two very expensive aircrafts to be able to have just one aircraft in your hangar, which is available full time. In addition, the geopolitics of F-35 is far more complex than the geopolitics of a Rafale. And hence, in the equation from an Indian perspective of which platform to buy, among the few that are available, which fit in the requirement that India has, which is, at least a 4.5 plus generation aircraft, there are very few that India can really buy. And finally, the race had come down to the fifth generation Su-57 from Russia versus the Rafale from France. And Rafale has been battle tested by India. And in Operation Sindoor, it performed brilliantly, which is why the Indian Air Force is very, very comfortable going ahead with buying more of these Rafales. Now, by the time this 114 Rafales will be bought, and assuming that there is no further degradation of the number of squadrons that India has, so by 2030 or 2034, we'll reach 42 squadrons, including the 114 Rafales that come in. And that is still nowhere close to the 60 that is needed. And perhaps it'll be more by the time 2035 comes, which means that's where the AMCA program fits in. So it is not this or that. It is not that the Rafale is coming in, so the Indian fifth generation aircraft program will get compromised. That's not the case. There is a need for many more aircrafts of that capability that can be inducted. Also, in parallel, what's happening, and the wing commander kind of hinted at that, is that the kind of platform required will also be changing quite rapidly. So by 2035, perhaps we don't even need a manned platform, although the experts in the Air Force do put their foot down on that and say we do need manned aircrafts, but probably we need a very different mix of aircrafts. We need a lot more unmanned and a lesser number of manned aircrafts, which will then have what's typically called the wingman kind of aircrafts with one single aircraft managing them. And are we building them up? Does Rafale have the capability to support these future developments? And then the whole issue of how much of upgrades we can do. Now, France has not been clear whether we can upgrade the Rafale to the fifth generation. They have allowed us to upgrade it from the third to the fourth, but not to the fifth. There is no clarity on it. And so, do we send the planes packing back to France for the upgrades as and when it is needed? Those are clarity that we need. The good part is that when we are setting up an MRO to service such a large number of aircraft, then clearly Dassault, which is the provider of Rafale, will use the Indian infrastructure and facilities to service other Rafale aircrafts. And therefore, the center of gravity for fighter aircrafts would move towards India. And that's a really plus point in that sense. And that gives a lot of opportunity to MSMEs, defense players, defense MRO players to get a pie, a share of that pie as and when it gets created.
Okay.
So there are many advantages, there are some challenges, but we don't really have much of an option.
All right, it's a mixed bag as has been